South Park was secretly running the most advanced profit-maximizing school on television, and you didn't even notice. Hidden inside dark jokes and funny storylines are profit-maximizing lessons that rival most billionaires' business secrets. And today I'm breaking down every way South Park accidentally taught you how to profit-max business models. One of the most important business lessons in television history came from creatures that steal underwear in the middle of the night. The Underpants Gnomes had a foolproof three-step business plan that they were absolutely convinced would make them rich. Phase 1. Collect underpants. Phase 2. Question marks. Phase 3. Profit. This became the most quoted business reference in South Park history because it perfectly captures every failed startup and established company that exists today. The Gnomes were incredibly efficient at Step 1. They had massive warehouses full of stolen underwear and could infiltrate any bedroom undetected. They were completely obsessed with Step 3, constantly talking about all the profit they were going to make. But when the kids asked them how collecting underwear actually leads to profit, the Gnomes just repeated Phase 2 like it was obvious. They genuinely believed that if they collected enough underpants, money would magically appear. Maybe they're right, but this three-step plan is used all around the world to critique businesses that focus on growth metrics while completely ignoring how they actually generate revenue. Tech startups that burn through millions without a monetization strategy. Social media platforms that collect users while hoping advertising revenue will eventually cover costs. Any company that thinks we'll figure out how to make money later is following the Underpants Gnomes playbook. And trust me, that is not a good thing. The lesson is fundamental. If you cannot explain exactly how your business makes money in one simple sentence, you don't have a business model. Step 2 is always the hardest part, because it requires understanding your market and all the other geek shit. But knowing you need a business model is just the beginning. South Park also taught us that customers lie about what they really want. Customer behavior. What customers say means absolutely nothing compared to what they actually buy. South Park proved this through the most devastating example of consumer hypocrisy ever put on television. When Harbucks threatened to move into South Park, the entire town rallied behind Tweek's local coffee shop. People gave passionate speeches about supporting community values and fighting corporate chains. They organized protests and created propaganda about how evil big corporations were destroying small-town America. But the moment Harbucks opened, these same people became their first customers. Every single person who had made speeches about loyalty and community values immediately abandoned Tweek's coffee shop the second they tasted Harbucks' superior product. And Harbucks wasn't just slightly better. Tweek's coffee literally tasted like sewage. We're talking about a massive quality difference that customers had been tolerating for years, just to support a local business. This episode teaches the most important lesson about customer behavior. People vote with their wallets, not their words. Market research based on what people say they will do is often completely worthless compared to observing what they actually purchase when given real choices. Successful businesses focus on revealed preferences through purchasing behavior rather than stated preferences through surveys or social media sentiment. Customers will lie to your face about their values and priorities, but their credit card statements tell the truth about what they really care about. If you want customer loyalty, you have to earn it through superior value, not guilt trips. This customer hypocrisy reveals something even deeper about who really has power in business relationships. Market power. Companies don't force people to buy anything. Customers choose the winners and losers through their purchasing decisions, even when they claim to hate the winners they're choosing. When Walmart arrived in South Park, it destroyed every local business within weeks. The hardware store, pharmacy, and grocery store all closed because they couldn't compete with Walmart's prices. The townspeople organized protests and eventually decided to destroy Walmart's heart to kill the corporate beast. But when they found Walmart's heart, it was just a mirror reflecting their own faces back at them. The episode revealed that Walmart, Kmart, Target, and all big box retailers are actually manifestations of consumer desire itself. They only exist because customers give them power through their purchasing decisions. Every dollar spent at Walmart was a vote for its continued dominance. The townspeople weren't victims of corporate manipulation. They were active participants in creating the exact business environment they claimed to hate. Walmart only had power because consumers chose lower prices and convenience over supporting local businesses. This is sophisticated economic commentary disguised as absurd comedy. Corporate power comes entirely from customer choices, not corporate coercion. Companies that win are those that better serve customer needs, regardless of public sentiment about their practices. The lesson applies to every market disruption, from Amazon's retail dominance to Netflix destroying Blockbuster. The companies that get displaced aren't victims of unfair competition. They're casualties of customer preferences for better products and services. Understanding who really has power in business relationships is crucial for profit maximization. But South Park also revealed the psychology behind economic cycles that most people completely misunderstand. Economic psychology. Economic prosperity requires consumer confidence and spending, not just saving and austerity. South Park explained this better than most economics textbooks through Randy's contradictory behavior during the town's recession. Randy became obsessed with the economy's decline, and started preaching about the need for everyone to stop spending money and live more responsibly. He gave lectures about fiscal responsibility and cutting unnecessary expenses to weather the economic storm. Then he immediately bought a margarita machine. This perfectly captured how people behave during economic downturns. They preach austerity while making frivolous purchases. They claim to be worried about money while continuing to spend on things they want. The gap between what people say about the economy and how they actually behave reveals the psychological nature of economic cycles. Kyle eventually realized that the recession was caused by people losing faith in spending. His solution involved paying off everyone's debts so they could resume purchasing, demonstrating how spending creates a virtuous cycle where money circulates through the economy. The business lesson is that during downturns, companies that continue investing in growth, marketing, and innovation often emerge stronger when conditions improve. Excessive cost-cutting can create death spirals, where reduced spending leads to reduced revenue across entire market segments. Smart businesses understand that consumer confidence drives economic cycles. They position themselves to benefit from these cycles rather than being victimized by them. When everyone else is cutting back, that's often the best time to gain market share through continued investment. But even with customer demand and economic confidence, every business faces the same harsh operational reality that destroys most entrepreneurial dreams. Operational reality. Every business has unavoidable operational costs that must be funded through revenue, and these costs will crush your dreams if you don't plan for them properly. Cartman learned this lesson the hard way when he inherited $1 million and bought an entire amusement park. His goal was simple: keep everyone else out so he never had to wait in line for rides. His business plan was the opposite of normal logic. Instead of attracting customers, he wanted to repel them, but reality hit immediately. Running an amusement park costs enormous amounts of money. He needed electricity to power the rides, water for the facilities, maintenance crews to keep everything working, security guards to patrol the property, insurance to cover liability, permits and licenses to operate legally. To pay for these operational costs, Cartman was forced to let in paying customers, just enough to cover expenses, but not enough to create the crowds he was trying to avoid. This accidentally made the park incredibly exclusive and desirable, creating massive demand through artificial scarcity. Many entrepreneurs, especially in the digital age, make Cartman's mistake of underestimating the resources required to maintain quality service as they scale. SaaS companies underestimate server costs and customer support needs. Restaurants ignore food waste and labor expenses. Retail businesses fail to account for inventory management and storage costs. The episode teaches that operational excellence requires constant funding through sustainable revenue streams. You can't just focus on the fun, creative parts of business while ignoring the boring infrastructure that makes everything work. Even successful businesses discover that growth brings responsibilities and costs you might not want. Customer satisfaction requires compromise. Profit means taxes. Success creates complexity that must be managed professionally. At least Cartman had a real product to sell and actual operational challenges. Modern startup culture has created something much worse than operational naivety. Startup culture. Sustainable businesses require actual value creation, not just clever marketing, investor funding, or media attention. South Park satirized the worst aspects of modern entrepreneurship through Cartman's startup philosophy. Startup, cash in, sell out, bro down. The boys genuinely believed that starting a company meant they never had to work or attend school again. They thought entrepreneurship was about avoiding responsibility rather than taking on more of it. Their company produced absolutely nothing but attracted attention through controversial branding and media manipulation. This perfectly captures the mentality of entrepreneurs who focus on pitch decks, investor meetings, and press coverage while neglecting product development, customer acquisition, and revenue generation. They're more interested in the lifestyle and status of being a founder than the actual work of building something valuable. The episode shows how startup culture often prioritizes funding over substance. Companies raise millions of dollars based on compelling stories and charismatic presentations, then burn through the money without creating anything customers actually want to buy. Real businesses solve real problems for real customers. They generate revenue by providing value, not by convincing investors they might provide value someday. The most successful companies often start small and grow organically through customer demand rather than external funding and hype. South Park's critique of startup culture is that it encourages people to view business as a get-rich-quick scheme rather than a long-term commitment to serving customers and creating value. The companies that survive and prosper are those that focus on fundamentals rather than fundraising theater. Even companies with real products and sustainable revenue streams discovered that customer loyalty isn't something you can take for granted in competitive markets. Brand loyalty. Brand loyalty is conditional and can be destroyed overnight by superior value propositions. No amount of tradition, community connection, or emotional appeals can protect you from competitors who offer better products at better prices. The Tweak family learned this through devastating personal experience. They believed their customers were loyal due to years of tradition and community relationships. Tweek's parents had been serving South Park for decades and assumed that history meant something to their customers, but loyalty disappeared instantly when Starbucks offered better coffee at lower prices. People who had been customers for years became Starbucks' first customers without any hesitation or guilt. The emotional connection to the local business meant nothing when faced with a superior alternative. This applies to every industry where incumbent companies assume customer loyalty will protect them from disruption. Kodak thought customers loved their brand too much to switch to digital cameras. Blockbuster thought customers valued the personal service of video stores. Taxi companies thought customers would never trust getting rides from strangers through smartphone apps. Companies must continuously improve their offerings because disruption can come from anywhere. Brand loyalty based on nostalgia or convenience can evaporate quickly when customers discover better alternatives. The only sustainable loyalty comes from consistently delivering superior value. The lesson is that customers don't owe you anything just because you've been serving them for a long time. Every transaction is a new opportunity to earn their business or lose it to someone who serves them better. This principle applies even more in the modern economy, where remote work and digital transformation have changed fundamental business relationships. Remote work and entrepreneurship require exceptional self-discipline and intrinsic motivation. The flexibility that makes these arrangements attractive also creates opportunities for failure among people who need external structure to stay productive. Cartman got a remote job but immediately started abusing work-from-home policies and mental health days to avoid doing any actual work. He left Butters to handle all the real responsibilities while he enjoyed the benefits of being employed without the effort of working. When his schemes were discovered, Cartman decided to start his own hot dog business, convinced that entrepreneurship would be easier than having a boss. He thought running his own company meant complete freedom to do whatever he wanted whenever he wanted. Instead, he discovered that business ownership requires even more work and responsibility than traditional employment. As an entrepreneur, he was responsible for everything: product quality, customer service, marketing, finances, legal compliance, and operational management. There was no one else to delegate to or blame when things went wrong. This episode aired years before remote work became mainstream, but it perfectly predicted the challenges that many people face when working from home. Without external structure and accountability, some people struggle to maintain productivity and professional standards. The same principles apply to entrepreneurship. Many people are attracted to the idea of being their own boss without understanding the self-discipline required to succeed without external management. Successful remote workers and entrepreneurs must develop strong personal accountability systems and intrinsic motivation. The companies that thrive in remote work environments are those that understand how to maintain culture, productivity, and accountability without traditional office structures. It's a completely different skill set than managing in-person teams. But the biggest profit opportunities come from understanding how entire markets shift due to technological and demographic changes that reshape competitive landscapes. Market disruption. Technological and demographic changes constantly reshape competitive landscapes, creating opportunities for businesses that anticipate these shifts and adapt accordingly. South Park explored this through time-traveling immigrants from the future who came back to find work because their own time period had no job opportunities. These goobacks were willing to accept much lower wages than current residents, creating economic tensions that paralleled real-world debates about immigration, automation, and globalization. The episode showed how existing workers faced wage competition from people with different economic circumstances and expectations. This created resentment and conflict among groups that were really competing against larger economic forces beyond anyone's individual control. The business lesson is that markets are constantly being disrupted by new technologies, demographic shifts, regulatory changes, and global economic forces. Companies that survive and prosper are those that anticipate these changes rather than being blindsided by them. Automation has eliminated millions of jobs while creating new categories of work that didn't exist before. Geographic shifts in manufacturing and service delivery have transformed entire industries. Demographic changes have created new customer segments while making others less relevant. Successful businesses position themselves to benefit from these trends rather than being victimized by them. They invest in workforce development, geographic expansion, technological upgrades, and market diversification to stay ahead of disruption. The companies that fail are often those that assume current conditions will continue indefinitely. They become too comfortable with existing business models and customer relationships, leaving themselves vulnerable to more agile competitors. The businesses that not only survive disruption but create powerful competitive advantages often do so by making customers completely dependent on their services. Customer dependency. Businesses that become integral to customers' daily routines can charge premium prices and maintain customer loyalty, even during controversies or operational problems. Consumer addiction to convenience and instant gratification creates powerful business moats. South Park demonstrated this through Amazon's dominance in the delivery economy. When Amazon workers went on strike due to poor working conditions, customers became so desperate for their packages that some started working at Amazon fulfillment centers themselves just to get their orders processed. The episode showed how consumer dependency on fast, convenient delivery had become so strong that people were willing to become part of the system they were critiquing rather than change their consumption habits. The strike was supposed to pressure Amazon to improve working conditions, but customer addiction to the service undermined worker leverage. This reveals how companies like Amazon, social media platforms, and subscription services create customer dependency that transcends normal business relationships. These businesses become part of customers' daily routines and identity in ways that make switching costs psychological as well as financial. The business lesson is that companies should focus on creating habitual usage patterns and integration into customers' workflows rather than just providing occasional value. When customers can't imagine their daily life without your product or service, you have pricing power and customer retention that goes beyond normal market competition. This applies to software companies that integrate deeply into business processes, consumer brands that become part of personal identity, and service providers that handle essential but complex tasks that customers don't want to manage themselves. The most valuable companies often become invisible infrastructure that customers rely on without thinking about alternatives. But even the most successful businesses with the strongest customer dependency can be undermined by one fundamental weakness that most entrepreneurs completely ignore: financial literacy. Understanding financial systems protects against exploitation and enables better business decisions. Financial literacy becomes a competitive advantage in any business context because it allows you to navigate banking, investment, taxation, and regulatory systems effectively. South Park taught this lesson through Stan's innocent attempt to learn about saving money. He walked into a bank and deposited $100, expecting to earn interest and understand how banking works. The bank immediately invested his money in complex financial instruments, and when Stan asked about his deposit, the clerk casually responded, "And it's gone." This scene satirized how financial institutions can manipulate customer funds through opaque investment strategies that most people don't understand. Stan's money disappeared into derivatives, hedge funds, and exotic financial products that had nothing to do with simple savings accounts. The broader lesson is that entrepreneurs and business owners who don't understand financial systems become vulnerable to exploitation by banks, investors, accountants, and regulatory agencies. They make decisions based on incomplete information and trust advisors who may not have their best interests in mind. Financial literacy allows business owners to understand cash flow management, tax optimization, investment strategies, debt structures, and regulatory compliance. These skills become more important as businesses grow and face more complex financial decisions. Companies that understand financial systems can optimize their capital structure, minimize tax liability, negotiate better terms with lenders and investors, and identify opportunities for growth financing that less sophisticated competitors miss. The most successful entrepreneurs often have strong financial skills or surround themselves with advisors they trust to handle these aspects of business management. They understand that financial management is just as important as product development or customer acquisition. Conclusion: if you enjoy this video and want to see every major South Park business ranked, click the video on screen.